Well, aloha kakahiaka, everyone. Today is December 10th, 2021. I'm your host, Peter K., and you are with the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. Yes, I said it right this time. I've been screwing up week after week after week, and I took my time to do it right this time. And I am here with my friends. I'm here with Dylan Onaka, who's with us from the Big Island, and I'm with Heidi Dollinger, who is with us from Maui. Scott Startsman, who always is our Oahu expert, is out today. He is flying from someplace to somewhere, and we are warming up. We're warming up the audience. We're warming up our microphones to do the mic check, et cetera, et cetera. So let's kind of go around the table. Let's start with Heidi. Heidi, I like that. By the way, I like that thing in the back of your that art piece behind you. That looks really, really nice. How are you doing, Heidi?
I'm doing great. I have my Hawaii coffee mug, drinking my morning coffee, which is awesome. This is a vanilla mac nut kind of flavored coffee, pretty light roast and easy to drink. And this art piece was actually done by one of my friends who's an artist. Her name's Jacqueline Mauvais, and she was nice enough to give me this picture. So
Wow, nice enough to give. That's cool, awesome. Now that you mention, I'll have to mention a story I'll tell about an artist. But we're gonna go to Dylan next. Dylan, let's do a mic check. How are you doing? What's the Aloha shirt? What's the background? How you doing, buddy?
I got a Monohe Ali'i on today, which is another local designer there in Oahu. I think they have 2 locations now, but this is different style, right? Different kind of vibe to it. A little bit more going on than the normal Sigzanes that are kind of more subdued. But yeah, it's a beautiful day over here. I'm raring and ready to go. I'm on like cup number 3 of coffee because this is my fourth online call this morning. So I started at 5 this morning, had one at 7, one at 8. So raring and ready to go.
Well, you're all warmed up, man. You're all warmed up, and Latasha Mitchell has joined us. Hello, first time I've caught the live Natasha. Awesome, welcome. You're going to meet the rest of the crew over here. There's a family. We have like a family gathering every other Aloha Friday, which is so much fun. Like Dwayne Carwell from Kentucky. Welcome back, guys. Good to see you, Dwayne. And Neil's back with us. Neil, how's it? Coffee is good. Yeah, I wanted to share a coffee story, Heidi. Since you and I are the coffee aficionados. I don't know if anyone, Dylan, I don't know if you're a coffee aficionado, but so I got this new toy, and my new toy is the food saver. Those vacuum sealer things. And so now I'm like vacuum sealing everything I can get my hands on. I'm vacuum sealing everything. And so what I'm doing now, Heidi, is like, when I go to Costco and buy the big bag of coffee beans, right? I'll bring the big bag of coffee beans, and then when I bring it home, I will measure out exactly 42 grams because that's how much coffee I have to grind in the morning. I precisely measured it because I got my Starbucks insulated coffee mug. So I've determined it's exactly 42 grams of ground beans. So what I'll sit there and I'll measure my 42 grams and put them in individual packets and vacuum seal them. And so it's like it's phenomenal, Heidi, because you get like the best, the coffee beans, vacuum packed fresh coffee beans for like, however many weeks that bag will last me. So that's my anal retentive.
I just try to live as close as possible to the coffee farm.
Even better. Live near the coffee farm. Awesome. And Judy's.
Dylan grew up in a coffee farm, didn't you, Dylan?
I did, and that's why I'm no longer a coffee farmer. So
nothing to take you away like farming, like being an actual farmer, right? Then when you realize what you got to do, it's like, man. So Dylan, who was the coffee farmer in your family?
So the Japanese side of my family came over here, in the early 1900s, right at the turn of the century, and basically worked on coffee farms. And we still own 1 acre is where my dad lives. That was my grandma's small little farm, but it's, trees are pretty much not taken care of anymore, and there's not that much left of it. So we're not actively doing it anymore. And nowadays, with the way of the world, you have to have a volume to make it make sense. Like there used to be a lot of family farms that had, 1 to 5 acres, and it was never really a way to make living. In recent history, in the last 30 years, it was more of a side hustle, right? Something you did on the weekends or in the afternoons after your regular job. But nowadays, the scale, there's so many farmers out there that are, like you need 10 plus acres to make it make sense, and they plant them in rows and you can mow it, and it's a lot more efficient. Where back in the day, my ancestors, they just planted coffee wherever they could find it, so you break your ankles trying to pick coffee because it's all in between the lava rocks, and they wouldn't grade the land first. It was just whatever land you had, you planted coffee every 4 feet away from each other, and that's how they did it. So it's very different now. Coffee farming is a lot sexier now than it used to be in the old days.
A lot sexy. Well, it's become, it becomes it's become commercialized, right? People realize, Kona coffee, how good the Kona coffee is, and it becomes commercialized. It's no longer, like you said, a side hustle, a hobby, basically.
Starbucks
right?
actually has a huge investment in it. I mean, they're doing thousands of acres here. They're behind a company here. They're funding a company here that's been developing thousands and thousands of ranch land, and they're buying a bunch of stuff up and bringing the farms back to life. Some of them that were neglected over the years. So yeah, there's a lot. I mean, people are betting on coffee big here, especially when you can be getting they're selling estate coffee for like $60-$80 a pound. It's crazy.
It's going, yeah,
It's crazy.
It's great. It's going for, yeah. Well, because it's high demand. The whole gourmet thing, right? What an interesting reflection on our society. We're so unbelievably spoiled. We're so unbelievably fortunate to live in the world that we do. It's just incredible.
The interesting thing that people don't realize is, so I don't know, do you know, I'll ask you, what do you think a pound of coffee right off the tree will get you as a farmer?
What in
Cherry
terms of
coffee.
dollars, or
Yeah, coffee cherry. Like you pick you pick a bag of coffee, 100-pound bag of coffee. What does that get you per pound?
I have no freaking idea whatsoever.
Because roasted in a bag, it's gonna cost you $60 or $80, right?
Okay, it's $60 or $80 per
roasted
per 100 pounds or per pound, or
no. So coffee cherry, you get between $2 and $2.50. Right. So if you look at the value add, and of course you lose the pulp, you lose the weight, you got to dry it, you got to roast it, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it's a huge turnaround in cost, right? From
sure
picking it versus when you sell it retail as a roasted pound of coffee.
Wow.
So
well, that's Dylan, that's a little bit more coffee information than I really was looking for, but I feel so much more educated now about coffee. And there's Heidi. See, you've got Heidi drinking it. Hey, we got to say hello to our friends who are joining us. Latasha, who's our first timer. I mentioned that we have a family that gathers with us every other Friday, and Judy is one of them. Aloha, Judy. Judy is a member of an alumni of the Islander Ohana. Judy, great to see you back. And Kinaya, who can forget Kinaya, also one of our Islander Ohana alumni. Kinaya is going to be making that trek to Hawaii, right, Kinaya? How's the boys this morning? Fill us in. And Patrick joins us. Aloha from the cold and rainy northeast of the mainland. Patrick, welcome back, buddy. Good to see you. Good to see you back. Tony is back with us. Aloha, everyone. How is Red Hill affecting the real estate market? How do you guys deal with how housing of urban development? Mahalo and have a good weekend. Tony, we're going to get to that question in just a second. Bobby Williamson, also a member of the island, an alumni of the Islander Ohana. Bobby, great to see you, buddy. Are you on the big?
He's here and in escrow right now.
So, awesome. Congratulations, Bobby. Bobby was we went through a lot of meetings together, and I know the journey. So Bobby, that's congratulations in escrow on the big on. Awesome. Congratulations. So happy for you. Tom joins us every other weekend too. Tom, hey, Tom, good to see you, buddy. Aloha and welcome. And of course, Auntie Joyce, who's one of the pillars of our viewers, joins us every other Sunday and is referred to by Dylan as Auntie Joyce. Dylan Hanaid. I don't know who Hanai'd who, Dylan. If you Hanai'd Auntie Joyce, if she Hanai'd you, to Hanai is the Hawaiian word for to take someone in as family. So Dylan and Auntie Joyce, I'll let you folks tell me who Hanai'd who, but it's kind of fun. I love it.
Might have been mutual.
Could have been, there you go, mutual. There you go. Bobby Wilson is preaching and loving it. Bobby, I can't wait to see the photos. Bobby's got these insane photos he's been posting on his Facebook page on this crazy, these amazing eats that he goes and gets, these beautiful, gorgeous plate lunches that make my mouth water as he brings. So Bobby, keep it coming, buddy. Keep it coming. All right. Let's get this party started, folks. We're gonna move on. Gonna warm up a little bit with some news. Could be folks posting on kind of what's been going on over here. So interesting, folks. We've had, of course, interestingly enough, everyone's been asking about the storms and the flooding, and it's been, it's a very interesting sort of a situation on the storms. Yes, we had storms, but no, the world did not come to an end. I must have been like a slow media day because the news was catching everywhere. I had friends and family ask me how we're doing, etc. We did have a lot of rain. It all came down like on one day. And Heidi, there was a whole bunch of mudslides and mommy. So I want to hear that from Heidi. And Big On's tough. They're used to this kind of stuff, but I want to hear from Dylan. But we're fine. We're safe. And actually, if you look down here, if you look at the weather down below, today's gonna be partly sunny. Saturday, you can kind of see what the thing is. It was one day. It was one nasty. We had one really nasty day. I believe that was Monday. Tuesday was partly cloudy. Wednesday was fine, and we're good. So, but thank you all for asking. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to us. The Pearl Harbor, of course, was on December 7th. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you've got in the article, if you look at that article that I posted on our website for December 7th, there is a great video on Pearl Harbor and a brief history of Pearl Harbor. It's absolutely fabulous. Definitely want to look at it. There's also pasted a wallpaper you can download. Great shot of Ford Island in Hawaii. Let's see what else have we got here. The Oahu median price, and Scott's not here to talk about this, but we are now. I'd say we're definitely going to be over $1 million permanently. Median price of a single family home on Oahu jumped to $1,050,000 from $872,000. Big leap. I think we're forever never going to go back under $1 million. Now, here's what's interesting, gang. So the real big story that you probably didn't hear on the mainland is there's a tainted water problem on Oahu, which has been resurfaced. This, I'm sure, did not get any, well, I'm going to bet didn't get any national news like the storm did. The storm was not that important. Tainted water is a big deal. So there's a controversy going on right now. There's the Navy has fuel tanks on Oahu, and these fuel tanks have apparently leaked fuel, and it has found its way to the groundwater. And so there's all kinds of stuff going on but you're going to hear more and more about this later on. There's some controversy going back and forth, whether it's real or not. There have been wells that have been shut down that are not pumping water. It could be a big deal. We're going to hope that it's not going to affect us too much. And this was, I think, who asked about this? Yes, and Tony, the Red Hill. So it's not going to affect the real estate. I wish Scott was here. It's not going to affect the real estate market anytime soon. It's going to be more of a long-term thing to see if it's going to be affected. And we don't have the long-term answer yet. There was actually a story that came out just yesterday that the Navy says, JK, was a mistake. The water is fine. Our testing was the fuel contamination that we detected in the water, came from some other source like the pipes or the valves. It didn't really come from the well, and that just came out yesterday. So we're all going to take that with a grain of salt. So that's the quick news for today. Omicron virus looks like it might be coming back. People are, you're concerned about it, but you look at the curves over there. The number of cases were down. The fatalities are down. We'll see if Omicron is going to affect us or not. Why don't we do this? Let's kind of go around and get some quick updates of local news and real estate. I'm going to combine this now to kind of squeeze in the time. So any real estate news or any local news. So Dylan, why don't you get us started? How was this? Fill people in on the storm. There was blizzard. There was that was the other headline, right? Blizzards in Hawaii, and the big headline I heard was like foot of snow in Hawaii. Denver is dry, right? It's like as if we had snow in Hawaii. But go ahead, Dylan. You tell us what happened.
Well, we did at 13,000 feet up in the mountains. So we did have snow. There was a blizzard on the observatories. It happens all the time. It happens every year. It's nothing new. But the storm was, for us, was pretty bad. I mean, it was, we have such mild weather here. We're so spoiled. And I've talked about this especially on the west side in Kona, where you have Mauna Loa, which kind of blocks the east-west sides of the island. And so a lot of times when we get nasty weather, it gets trapped on the east side or it kind of gets broken up by the mountain. But this was a Kona low is what they call it, because it kind of scooped underneath the islands and then came up. And so it hit the west side of the big island. And so we had a lot of wind. And because one of my observations I took away from this storm was Kona has such mild weather and we almost never have wind. Like that's just not a major weather issue on the west side, that when you do get wind, there's like mass damage, because those trees that would normally fall during regular windy weather or when things would break if things got windy, it doesn't happen. So there's exponentially more of it when there is wind, because everything that's prone to break does. And we also, it was funny, we don't prepare for the wind, so it's amazing how many tents got destroyed during this weekend, because you have all of these shops and people use tents as carports, and people just leave tents up all over the place, different types of temporary tents, and it just did mass damage. There's a lot of tent casualties across the west side of the island. So yeah, it was gnarly. It rained a lot. It was windy. But another cool thing about it, my takeaway was on Sunday. Sunday was a bad windy day. I had some friends that had a couple of trees fall over their driveway, so I went up there that afternoon with a chainsaw, and we spent the afternoon and early evening clearing those trees. And then I got home, and right below my house, another big tree fell across the road, and it was dark already. It was like 8 p.m. and it was touching the power lines. And a couple of neighbors went out there. We don't, people stopped on the road that I didn't even know. And one dude had 2 chainsaws, and literally in like 20 minutes, we had this huge tree cleared from the road just from people coming together and making it happen, because you can't wait for the county or Helco or somebody else to do it. It's like we only have one road going up and down our street and had to get cleared, and people just come together and they do it and they take care of it. So that was a cool thing about it, was just the community making stuff happen.
That is the positive side of these sort of things, right? The positive side is that it does these sort of things bring people together, right? Always, usually, almost always, especially storms, right? Storms always bring people together, and that is a benefit part. Yeah, that's a lot of really good points that you brought up, Dylan. You are correct. I mean, there was that Kona low that came out from a different direction, and like you say, we're so spoiled. Tent casualties, right? Right, exactly.
There were destroyed tents everywhere. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You don't realize how many tents there are until you drive down the road and you see smashed tents and tarpaulins flapping in the wind. And it was, mass casualties.
It's a testament to how perfect our weather is, how perfect and completely reliable that our weather is. Anything that you want to mention on the real estate front? Anything that's changed dramatically in the market that you want to report on, Dylan?
It's kind of status quo right now. Very low inventory still. Median prices are up 20% from last year. So that's kind of what we're seeing nationwide. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling that it's a 20% increase. I mean, but you see it, right? If you've been watching the real estate market, you see it. And the data is now showing that consistently. So yeah, the number of properties are going down that sell just because there's nothing to sell. And I always mention this number. A year ago in November, there was 2,400 active listings on the island. There's 1,600 today, so 1,000 less active listings and the same amount in escrow, basically. So the market started heating up last, at the end of last year when people started being able to come back. So the number of escrow started going up, but then the number of new listings on the market didn't keep up with it. So we're way down. Same number of 1,200 properties in escrow right now, but only 1,600 on the market. It's like almost a 1-to-1 ratio.
So there's still going to be upward pressure on prices due to supply and demands. Before we move on to Heidi, I want to say hello to, I want to kind of, we got some more comments I want to kind of share with everybody. First of all, Auntie Joyce says, I think Dylan's being kind. He and family can't get rid of me. The Auntie... Bless you, Auntie Joyce. We love you. And Joan Valentine, also an alumni of the Islander Ohana. Aloha from beautiful, sunny Oahu. Yeah, Joan. Now, Joan just recently moved to Oahu. Joan, I was kind of curious, how did the storm affect you? How did you fare your way through it? How much were you affected, if at all, on where you are on Oahu? Auntie Joyce, during storm, Chris watched a 50-foot African tulip tree in the adjoining street go down, pulled out from the roots, block road, really loud when it hit. Yeah, those, like I said, a lot of these, like Dylan said, these were just not used to the winds, and trees aren't used to it either. And Tom, how about impacts to Oahu properties in light of military gas spill into aquifer drinking water showing up in so many houses? Yeah, Tom, that's gonna be an issue. We're gonna find out. I don't know, Tom. The aquifer showing up in homes came in Navy homes, so it's kind of complicated. They have their own kind of water supply that comes from a different sort of a series of networks. It hasn't found its way into Oahu residences yet. It's found its way into Navy residences, but not to Oahu home residences yet. So it's gonna be a kind of a long-term issue. I think we're gonna have to kind of see where it goes. Tom, you must have just joined us because I mentioned earlier there's an evolving controversy as to whether or not the wells themselves are contaminated, or whether it was the pipeline on the way to deliver the water that's contaminated. The Navy is going there's some back and forth going on right now, so we're gonna find out. All right, Heidi. Your turn. Give us the update. How was Maui? How did you survive the great storm of December 2021? And give us a real estate update. What's happening, Heidi?
Well, I survived the great storm, so I don't know if that means I get a t-shirt, but it was pretty scary. I mean, it's one of the only times I can really remember. I mean, especially in the last 5, 6 years or so, when you just really hear the wind howling. And it did rain a lot. Where I'm located in West Maui, we didn't have a lot of damage, just some tree branches down. Um, South Maui got a lot of flooding. The shoulder of South Kihei Road fell off at one place, and there was storm drains were overflowing because all the debris just goes in the storm drains and clogs them up. So gulches and storm drains were overflowing. Um, there was just a lot of muddy water and sand and silt moving around. There were some road closures. People who had a whole bunch of debris dumped into their swimming pools and had to drain the pool. Um, Up country, they got a lot of wind up there, and there were about 22,000 people without power for a while up country. So it was quite a storm, but overall we made it through. And like Dylan said, people do pull together here and check up on their neighbors. So that's one of the really nice things.
How did Heidi? Do you want to give us any kind of an update on the real estate market? Anything, any significant changes to report on, or kind of the same thing it's been for the past year or so?
Yeah, I mean, buyer demand is still really high. Mortgage rates are still attractive. I Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac increased the conforming loan limit for Hawaii to 970,800. So that means it helps buyers get higher loan amounts on easier terms. Um, and inventory is low. I mean, it increased 51% for single family homes and over 81% for condominiums. Just a couple kind of quick stats. I was just looking at what sold on Maui in the last 30 days. The lowest price sale was a leasehold condo for 90,000. Highest price sale was a 5-bedroom house for 11,650,000, and that's not including Jeff Bezos' property for 78 million. So there's quite a range. Median price right now for condos on Maui is 725,000. Median price for a single family home is just under a million at 989. So yeah, we're just moving along. No big changes.
Yeah, I think the days. I think the $1 million median is going to be the norm at the very least. And not, I shouldn't say the very least, but I think the $1 million median, certainly for Maui and Oahu, is going to be the norm. I don't think we are going back. Um, Interesting. There was some news reports. I think the thing about the storm, on the good side of the storm, was that luckily it was short. It only came for, because I think you see, like, a lot of other days get a lot of other storms I know in the past. The real damage comes in, like, there's like a day one of the storm, and then there's like a little bit of a day two, and the ground's completely wet and all saturated, and then you get like another storm like a few days later, and then everything really gets washed out bad. Luckily, this one kind of came and went, so we got lucky. I did see some pictures on the media about some giant mudslides on Maui, Heidi. So I was thinking about you on that one. Yeah. Auntie Joyce has a cute comment here. Heidi, you have to learn to talk with your hands like Italians so we could look at your beautiful engagement ring during the show. Yeah, so Heidi, you have to kind of talk like this, yeah, just talk like this, just do this, like, oh yeah, and it was. Show us the ring, Heidi. Let's Heidi, everybody. Heidi got recently engaged, and Auntie Joyce wants to. There you go, beautiful engagement ring. Thank you, Heidi. God bless. We're so happy for you. And a good old friend of ours is back, who was away for a while. Jim Stevenson. Jim, we missed you, buddy. Jim was has been and is a regular of the Ohana here that meets every other Friday. So good to see you. And Corey Senior's with us. I love the Cadillac logo, dude. Aloha Friday, Peter, Dylan, and Heidi. Corey, it's great that you are back with us. And she who laughs. Yes, congratulations. Yes, congratulations. And it is indeed both for Heidi and for the man who was smart enough to propose to Heidi. All right, gang. Well, we're going to move on. So before we do, listen, gang, I just want to tell you all, make sure that you get your questions in. We're going to be going through the show. I've got slides and things like that. We're going to be having all kinds of discussions. If you have anything you'd like to know about Hawaii or about real estate, about anything, pop it in the comments. So we can kind of hit it as we go along with the show. And with that, so we're gonna move on over here. And so, a long time ago, I got this one question, which was, "Hey, is there a Facebook page or forum for us relocating there that will help us find stuff and get help for setting in? Thank you, love your program." Which, so yes, there is. And this is the islanderohana.com. So gang, we've got a few slots left. Every few months, we have a cohort. You heard me mentioning our Islander Ohana alumni. These are folks that have gone through a program. We have a formal program that takes you through a 10-week period from start to finish to help you move to Hawaii in the best possible way. The next cohort is going to start in January 15th of 2022. Make sure, if I've got it's going to sell out because we take 15 slots total. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 left. I'm not too sure how many, but it's going to sell out quick. Make sure you go through the Islander Ohana. I got a quick screenshot over here. I'm going to post later on. I'm going to post a link in the comments over here. This whole thing is about, what's it for? It's helping you avoid disaster, decades of wisdom. I've taken my 40 years of knowledge and put in a collection of courses. Make new friends. The cohort meets as a group every other week. So you make some of the first friends you're going to probably make when you move to Hawaii are going to be in the Islander Ohana cohort. And of course, we connect you with people like Heidi and with Dylan and Scott, who's over here. So I'm going to give you a link. I'm going to click on this link, go to this page, just pop in your email address is all you got to do. And once you do that, you'll go through the registration process. I got a special discount for you. So it is coming up. It is going on, and I hope you're all going to join me with it. It's a great thing. All right, we're going to move on over here to the next piece. Got a couple of comments over here. So Joan said, "I grew up on Long Island, back east with bad hurricanes, and we wouldn't have electricity for a week. The first December, I lived in Monterey, California, with a really bad storm that uprooted cypress trees all over Pebble Beach. When they said this was the worst in 50 years, my first thought was, oh crap, they're going to think I'm a jinx. In Kaka'ako, we did well." Yeah, Joan, storms are relative. I mean, we do get we do get the occasional hurricane that kind of wipes out an island, but like Dylan was saying, we're just spoiled here. We're just full on spoiled. That's all there is to it.
I did learn something interesting about insurance through this process. So I was talking to my insurance buddy, and people think that if their house floods due to a storm, their insurance is going to take care of it, and it doesn't necessarily do that, because you have to have specifically flood insurance in order. If it's groundwater, or if it's water rising, that's considered a flood. If the wind blows your roof off and then the rain comes through the top of your roof, then that'll be covered by your homeowner's insurance. But if it's rising groundwater, that's not covered by a standard homeowner's insurance policy that doesn't include flood insurance. So something to think about, and maybe talk to your insurance guy about is what your expectations are with insurance.
That's a really really good point. On that note,
Because we
Dylan,
saw this right a couple of years ago in Oahu, where you had those rivers that those drainage ditches that overflowed and flooded people's homes. They weren't necessarily covered because that was groundwater. It wasn't, if a pipe breaks in your house and floods your house, that's covered, right? But it's more when you have groundwater coming up that's specifically flood related, and it's not covered.
So groundwater, i.e. flood water, if you don't have flood insurance, that's not covered by your homeowner's insurance. If a pipe breaks or if the roof breaks, that's a different story. That's something to think about. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, Dylan, because last year when we had rains on Oahu, I had some of my neighbors, I mean, just like one street down, got flooded. And so I live on a slight incline, and I'm extraordinarily fortunate that our house is bone dry. We just got lucky. The house where we were at just the way it's situated on the street, etc. It's bone dry. I've never had any problems whatsoever in the hardest rains. But again, my neighbor just, two streets down got massively flooded. Why? They're in the wrong part of the street with the right in, with the wrong in here.
Mhm.
Here, Auntie Joyce, I'm giving the Italian hand version over here. Yeah, you had the wrong kind of, incline in a dip or a ditch or whatever, and the water backed up and blah blah blah, and people got flooded. So you really kind of, if as you do your house searching, you want to kind of find out as much as you can if the property is ever. Now, Dylan, is there a disclosure? Like, can you ask, like, has there ever been flooding in this property? Has there ever been groundwater ever in this property that etc.? That would be a disclosure thing, I would think, right?
Yeah, there is a seller's disclosure that requires that, but it's only if you have firsthand knowledge, right? I mean, a lot of times these things happen so infrequently that maybe it happened 3 owners ago and you don't know about it anymore. It's never happened when you've owned it. That's another reason why you need a good home inspector who's going to look at. A lot of times, home inspectors can see, in the concrete or in the wood, if there was water damage in the past, and maybe you can inquire further. But yeah, it's not something that's on the public record necessarily, right? If you did a homeowner's claim 20 years ago due to some type of flooding or something like that, it's not necessarily something that's on the public record that you can easily look up.
Heidi, what has been have you gotten any kind of input or feedback or questions from your customers or your buyers on kind of flooding, and how do you advise? I mean, it's got to be right now. It's going to be top of mind, I'm sure. What do you give? What's your advice, or what kind of feedback do you give to people about this flooding issue?
Yeah, for every sale, I mean, kind of my standard practice is I pull up a flood hazard assessment report to see what type of flood zone the property is. And I mean, generally people need this for their insurance agent as well to decide what kind of insurance. And yes, lo and behold, I mean, a lot of the areas that flooded recently in the storm are in higher risk, low-lying flood areas. So it's definitely a consideration, and I mean, something to be aware of when you're buying, for sure.
Yeah,
you can look up your flood zone. So that's something we definitely do. Standard due diligence but if you're in any type of flood zone, you're required to have flood insurance on your homeowner's policy if you have a mortgage. So that's sometimes a deterrent to people to buying, because your flood insurance policy could be $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year, depending on where you are and what the hazard is, especially oceanfront, right? Because then you have tsunami. You have to have tsunami. It's not tsunami insurance, but it's flood insurance due to the fact that you're in a tsunami zone, right? So.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the area where I live, I mean, pretty much everything's going to be in a tsunami evacuation zone. I mean, if you want to live by the ocean, if there is a major storm, I mean, you're going to want to evacuate, right? I mean, that's kind of just how it is. So it's kind of, everybody has to assess. I mean, there's always risks when you buy in an area, and you just have to assess if, that's going to work for you or not. I mean, same thing with the flooding, or if you're comfortable living oceanfront, or, it kind of just depends on the individual buyer. But I would never want anyone to buy something without being fully aware and informed, at least, of what these risks are.
Yeah, so true. There's, as you guys were talking about this, there's something that just popped in my head. First of all, Tom, Tom's got the right word. Tom says, who's also an Islander Ohana alumni, always ask your real estate agent if you are in a flood zone or in Hawaii, a tsunami zone. Yes, there's all kinds of zones, and as Don had mentioned, that's part of the due diligence. Here's one thing that kind of came to mind, Heidi, when you mentioned the oceanfront. There's an interesting balance in that you have to kind of think through in Hawaii, because on one hand, we all dream of these, whatever dream of your most awesome, amazing location would be, right? You either want to be on the beach, or, Dylan, when we were looking for our home almost 30 years ago, I kind of wanted a home that had like mountains as my backdrop. I wanted my home to be up against the mountain, so to speak, so that I wouldn't have any neighbors behind me, right? So I'm like, wow, I want this mountain back. But you got to be careful about all that stuff, right? Because if you're on that beachfront property, like you said, Heidi, tsunami, storms, all that stuff, you gotta evacuate. And you don't necessarily think about that, because you're just so enthralled with having this idea of, I'm living on the beach. there's a reason why old Polynesians did not. They thought they would bury people on the beach. Beaches were burial lands, and there's a reason why. They used to live up in the mountains, and there was some wisdom behind that, because when floods and storms would come, you're safer up in the mountains. But at the same time, on the mountains, you don't want to be too close to that mountain, because man, those rock slides start coming in, and when there's storms, there's like all kinds of water that comes in, and so you really got to be careful about kind of where you're going to want to buy that house. I wanted to be near the mountains, and I'm glad I was not, because rock slides are not fun. Mudslides are not fun. There's all kinds of stuff kind of going on that you don't want to be a part of. Then I don't know if you got any feedback on that idea. You really got to think that through. That idyllic property may not be that idyllic in severe weather.
But you also have to put it all into context, right? Because people think like, oh my God, there's all these disasters in Hawaii. There's tsunamis and hurricanes and lava and all this stuff. But that's true everywhere, right? I mean, you have wildfires in California, you have tornadoes in the Midwest, you have flooding in the South. I mean, so wherever you go, there are going to be natural disasters and elements that can threaten your house. So to me, I think relative, it's way less here than it is anywhere else, pretty much. We don't have blizzards every year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And everything is extremely localized. The big storms and stuff, my experience, it was just like heavy rain, and that was it. We were fine. There was nothing else going on, right? But there was flooding elsewhere and trees being down, etc. And so it's Heidi, do you have any feedback on that?
And the impressive thing about the storm, I thought, from an infrastructure standpoint, is there were a couple of places that didn't have power for maybe 24, 48 hours, but everything else was back on. Within hours, really. There wasn't as many trees that went down over power lines and telephone poles that went down. The power company did a really good job of putting everything back online. The longest I know of was like 48 hours, like 2 days. And that was in a very rural area, that I think they probably got to last. So
I think Oahu got again pockets, right? We were fine. We had an outage maybe for a very short while, under an hour, I think. But I think some part of downtown Oahu, some part of downtown Honolulu was out for like a day and a half. So it's again highly localized. Heidi, do you have any kind of feedback on weather and the picking the right property and not being too close to the beach or being too close to the mountains, or don't be that, you want that stream in your backyard until that stream becomes a raging river and you're going to choose up the rest of your property, right? We all want to have that I want to have that waterfall. I want to have a yard with a waterfall. Yeah, maybe not. Heidi, what do you think?
Well, I'm thankful there's no tornadoes over here.
That's right. That's right. You're in the rural Midwest.
Are way scarier. But yeah, it's just having a realistic view of risks and, knowing what you're willing to accept, but also recognize, there's always risks, but I guess don't go to your realtor and say, I want to be direct ocean front and not be in a flood zone and not be in a tsunami evacuation zone, because your choices might be limited.
Not gonna.
The due diligence period, it's about just learning what the risks are and understanding them, and then being able to decide if you're comfortable with it or not. So, I feel that we are very, very fortunate over here on Maui to have great weather, and especially on the west and south side. In general, we're very protected, and looking out from our coast, we have two other islands, Molokai and Lanai, right there. So for a storm to hit West Maui, it would have to perfectly come through the channel in just the right place. There hasn't been a history of a lot of storms directly hitting this coast, but there's always weather. We have to keep it interesting.
It's always weather, yeah. So it's like pick your natural disaster, right? And to your point, Heidi, tornadoes are. Well, did you ever experience a tornado growing up in Illinois?
Not right in one, but we had a lot of tornado warnings and scary weather. And actually, the town where my parents grew up in was, completely flattened. Everything was destroyed in this area. Every single building, roofs off of houses, everything just completely flattened. And I've seen that a few different times, and it's really scary to drive in and just see a neighborhood that's like been completely destroyed. Tornadoes affect, just small areas, but when they hit, they can be super, super devastating. So I'm definitely way more scared of tornadoes. But
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one for sure. Man, there was something I wanted to just I had something I wanted to kind of say. It slipped my mind, and it's going to be gone. Okay. Anyway, um, we're gonna move on. I got a couple of comments over here. I want to kind of sign in here to Lynn Walker. Welcome back, Lynn. Aloha, everyone. Love catching you guys live. Lynn, we are glad that you are here. That's what the live show is all about. If you have any questions, make sure you let us know. And Judy Weber, thanks, Judy, so much for the comment. Love it. Sign up for the Islander Ohana. It's amazing, and you will learn so much. Judy, I really appreciate you. That's a straight from the heart. I just popped a comment in, folks. Click on that link. Click on the join button and get on that. Definitely want to be a part of that. And Joan, who's an alumni, if you sign up for the Islander Ohana, you will not only gain knowledge, but you will meet amazing, like-minded people. That's what's so cool about the cohort, right? You get together with everybody who's on the same journey as you. So it's kind of really fun. And it's we're planning a meetup. We're going to do a hopefully that this turns out right. But on the December 18th, there's going to be a moon. We're going to do a sunset and moonrise. The sun's going to be setting at about the same time the moon's going to be rising, and we're going to go to a spot where hopefully we will get a really awesome view of both a sunset and a moonrise. And I can't think of anything cooler to kind of go do and see a moonrise. Hopefully, we're going to pray to the moonrise gods and have a good show. So anyway, yeah, thanks everyone. I really appreciate that. Alex is back. Hey, Alex, welcome back, buddy. Alex is also an alumni of the Islander Ohana. Aloha from Atlanta. Hope everyone's doing well. Alex, if I'm not mistaken, has a bee farm, right? Is honey? You have bees and you make honey on your farm, if I'm not mistaken, right, Alex? Let us in. All right, great. Let's see. Let's move on over here, and let's take our first. So, gang, so far no one's got any questions, which is great. I hope that means you're entertained. This is interesting. I hope you're getting something out of this. But there's that. If you ever had that thing when like you had something that you wanted to share, and then like it's gone, and now it's eating away at me, is what it was. But we're just gonna move on. I'm not gonna worry about it. All right. So we had Jan from Portland gave us a question, which I thought was kind of really, really cool. And she said, first of all, is there any data that shows the appropriate number of buyers broken down by residents versus mainland buyers? And that question made me think about a bunch of stuff that I kind of want to talk with you, Dylan, and you, Heidi, about the not just if you have a quick answer. Do you have any kind of a sense of what's the percentage of mainland versus local buyers? I'm curious about that. Let's answer that question directly, Jan's question. But what comes up a lot, maybe this is like the YouTube channel that I'm getting comments on, or comments on the website. I get a lot of comments about people on one side or another that are either concerned or are upset about mainland buyers crowding out local buyers. So, are they crowding out the local? Are they really crowding out local buyers? Is that really affecting the price? Are locals resentful about that? Let's have a discussion. I kind of want to hear your folks' perspective on this whole thing of, especially because you guys are in the business. How do you respond? Have you seen this? What's your feedback? What's your feel? How do you respond to it, etc.? Heidi, why don't we start with you? Why don't you get us going on this? First of all, do you have a thing about, what's the percentage of mainland versus local buyers? Do you have any of that? And then what's your kind of thought on this whole crowding out, locals can't buy homes, they're being forced, et cetera, et cetera? What do you think about all that, Heidi?
well, it's definitely a big issue. I mean, it is a reality. There is competition in the market from mainland buyers, which makes it more difficult for local families to buy. I mean, just look at the situation now. I mean, a buyer might be competing against multiple cash offers to buy a home. In the recent real estate market on Maui, in my experience, is even a qualified buyer with financing. I mean, as soon as we send in an offer, they get back to us and say, well, is your buyer willing to waive the appraisal? Meaning, if the property didn't appraise, they'd come up with more cash. And I mean, sometimes that can be a challenge. I mean, if you can't come up with more cash. So it definitely is competitive. Now, as far as mainland versus local buyers, I don't have an exact statistic. I'd have to get back to you on that. In my personal business, I would say like 25 to 30% local buyers, and probably the rest mainland off-island buyers. But I'm in very much a resort market, so the type of buyer that's going to buy the vacation rental type property tends to be the mainland buyer who's looking to come and go. I mean, I can give you just a really general statistic. In Maui County, this is from the West Maui community, or the Maui community plan a few years ago. 43% of properties are owner occupied, 34% renter occupied, and 23% vacant, mostly meaning their second home or occasional use. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is. It is. Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to kind of see if there's going to be a growing issue, if there's going to be some sort of legislative approach. Dylan, how do you? What's your response? Kind of, what's the quick answer, if you have one, on mainland versus local? And then, what about this? What about the controversy? What about the impacts, et cetera, of this mainland versus local buyers?
I don't think that there is any specific data on this because it's not something that's tracked, right? Like, no, there isn't a box you check when you're buying property saying if you're local or you're mainland. I mean, you may have an address, but that's kind of irrelevant too, because what if you came here 3 months ago and have been renting and now have a local address before you buy? So I'm not aware of a way that you can get this exact number. I think, like Heidi said, we that know the markets kind of anecdotally kind of have a feel for what that ratio is, but it is very localized too, right? Just on the Big Island, in my main market in Kailua Kona, 80% are from somewhere else that are buying. If you go to the east side in Hilo, it's going to be 80% local transactions, right? It's just a different area. It's more working class. It's more local. There aren't as many snowbirds. It's not a resort community. So like Heidi was saying, it really depends on what market you're in. I'm sure on Maui, it's very different in Kahului versus, Lahaina and or other areas in terms of who the buyer is. And that's, every island has those areas. And then, talking to Scott, there's a lot of local buyers on Oahu because there's just a lot more people there and they're moving around and upgrading and downgrading. So, it's definitely a thing that's out there. It's a perception that's out there, but I think we've talked about in the past that there is the electorate, right? At the end of the day, this is a government issue or a government problem or solution, and the electorate doesn't address it. So I've talked about this in the past here on the Big Island. If you ask people, is affordable housing a problem? 85% say yes. And then the next question you ask people, should we build more houses? And 75% say no. And so there's clearly a disconnect on how the price of housing is affected by the number of houses that we have. And in my opinion, there's also a very big disconnect as to what overdevelopment means, right? The idea that you don't want more houses is connected to, well, there's too much development and we got to protect the land or protect the aina. And the reality is on the island, less than 5% of the island has any type of building on it or is zoned for any type of building. And so we are very far away from any type of overdevelopment and a very small increase in the amount of buildable land or land that can be made affordable to build on, because that's another government created problem, is that land is so expensive to take from 10 acres of undeveloped land to 10,000 square foot buildable house lots, that the only development that really happens on the Big Island anyway is multi-million-dollar homes, because the only way you can make it profitable is to build a $5 million house on it. And until kind of people figure that stuff out and elect people that are more pro business and pro making housing, not government affordable housing, but actual affordable housing where people can build houses that regular folks can afford, it's not going to change.
Yeah, that really kind of goes into a really, really, really complex issue, and you're right, Dylan, on so many fronts. I'm wondering if there might I wonder if there might be. I've often thought that, could you put together some policies that would economically favor local families, to give them some sort of an advantage for them being here and living here, versus kind of a first time buyer coming in from the outside. But it's like you said, until that's a process that's long and complicated and far above our pay grade. Far above our pay grade.
And then I mean, you get into all kinds of fair housing issues and discrimination issues, because how do you qualify? What is a local buyer? Right. I mean,
yeah.
We can come up with 17 different definitions of what that means. Like, is it somebody who was off at college for 4 years and has had a mainland address and now wants to return, or maybe was on the mainland for 10 years, working and saving up? I mean, So what does that mean? So
The only just since we're riffing on this for a moment here, the only thing that I was able to kind of come up with, trying to put my economics hat on, even though I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination, my economics hat on was to say, well, give a tax, fix the price of the property taxes on your property until the property is sold, right? So as long as you keep your house, your taxes are going to stay the same, which would make property taxes for new homes go sky high, right? Property taxes for existing homes would stay the same, but they would be affordable. So the elderly would be able to, as you get older, you'd be able to kind of maintain the affordability, and then maybe give a benefit if you sell your house to a family member. If you sell your house to a family member, the tax would stay the same. So in other words, what this would mean is local generational families would have lower tax rates, and new buyers, external buyers, would have very, very high tax rates. And that would kind of be a natural disincentive without getting into fair housing acts about that. The other thing I thought about was that, Heidi mentioned this, I think it was you, Heidi, 23% are vacant, right? Summer homes. I've heard this, and I can see it happening, that there's going to be a different tax of properties on vacant homes that are vacant, a much higher property tax rate. Because, for example, Hawaii has some of the lowest property tax rates in the country, if I'm not mistaken. And so this incentivizes investors, foreign investors, like on Oahu. I know they're buying condos and they're just not doing anything with them. They're just buying them and kind of holding on to them. It's a better, 6% appreciation. Can't go wrong with that, right? It's better than most returns. So they're buying them and not occupying them. And I could see that going up. Anyway, I don't want to get into the weeds on this whole issue. My eyes are my own eyes are rolling back into my sockets. I want to kind of give a couple of shout outs over here. First of all, to Megan. Welcome back, Megan. Long time. Aloha from Maui, friends. Megan, Megan is an alumni of the Islander Ohana. And Megan, were you affected by Maui? How did you folks fare? Megan's great because she's living the dream. I loved it because you were part of the Islander Ohana. You were from the East Coast when we were in the thing, and then you moved to Maui. Have been missing, and this is a great comment, have been missing these lives due to having too much darn beach fun. I'm so glad. Hope everyone's doing well and glad to see some familiar faces. Loving our new Maui life and can't recommend joining the Islander Ohana enough. Megan, I'm so glad you guys are loving your Maui life. How did you do in the storms? How did it compare to East Coast storms that you've lived through? I'd love to know about that. Jim says, is there any single family new home construction in Hawaii, especially Oahu? Jim, I'm sure there is. Our expert Scott is not here, but I'm sure that there is. There's not a lot going on, but I know that there's always new home construction kind of happening. Tom asks, doesn't Hawaii have some set aside real estate laws for people of Hawaiian blood? That's a good question. I don't have the exact technical answer. I know that there is a program called Hawaiian Homelands, which is unfortunately a government-run program, which tells you everything you need to know about how well it's being executed. But that program is designed to, there are lands and there are passed on to those of Hawaiian ancestry. But I know that historically, many Hawaiians have died in line waiting for land that was never given. Heidi, Dylan, you guys, any comment you want to add to Tom's question about Hawaiian homelands kind of laws or things of that nature? Anything you guys want to say?
Yeah, so the specifics on that is there are lands set aside that are state lands, they're leasehold lands, so they do develop them, and you have to have 50% Native Hawaiian blood to qualify to get into them. So it does limit who qualifies. Most Hawaiians don't have 50% blood, and you have to be able to prove it. But again, it's leasehold land, so it doesn't have the same value. You get a 99-year lease. You don't ever own the land. You own the right to use it, like you do own it, but it's a lease, and so you don't get the same type of appreciation out of it. And like anything else, if you don't own it, what happens in these communities over time is that the properties deteriorate because you have no incentive to reinvest and upgrade and maintain because it's not something that you actually own. So yeah, it's not it exists. I don't know if it's the best way to incentivize home ownership, and it definitely hasn't, like Peter said, that it's notoriously not served the community well, where there's thousands and thousands of people on the waiting list and they never get their chance to get a piece.
Sadly. Like every other government-run program. Sorry. Like every other government, it's just the way it works. Sorry. Can you all tell I'm a pro-freedom, libertarian kind of guy? Yeah. Libertarians piss off both sides. We piss off both Democrats and Republicans because we want freedom. Hey, Heidi, any comments or feedback you want to offer on on Tom's question?
Yeah, I mean, not about the Hawaiian homelands, but there are quite a few workforce housing developments on Maui. And I'm not sure if this is statewide, but on Maui, any developer who develops more than 10 units has to have at least 25% as workforce affordable housing. And workforce housing, it serves full-time residents. You have to live and work on Maui, have not owned real estate before, and then be in there's different income categories based on how close you are to the median income. So it's not low income housing, but it's for, I mean, it's for working people who live on Maui. So those developments do exist. And then usually if you get one of these workforce housing units, you get it at a lower price, but then there's deed restrictions for 5 to 10 years that limits how much you can sell it for. So for example, in a condo development in Kihei called Kamalani, a workforce housing unit just sold, 2-bedroom condo for like around $335, and then a market rate one sold a couple days later for $535. But the one that sold for $335, I mean, they have restrictions on when they can sell it and how much they can make, and that kind of thing. So anyway, it's a long discussion.
It is. And as economists say, there's no such thing as a free, I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I'm sorry, Heidi, I cut you off.
No, that was it. I mean, it's a very long discussion, but I just wanted to mention that the workforce housing thing does exist, and it's been a great way for people to get into homes. But there's a very narrow group of people who can actually qualify for it, because you do actually have to make a good amount of income. You cannot own real estate in the past, and it's just a small percentage of people that can qualify for it. So what often happens is they'll introduce the new development, a certain amount will go towards workforce housing, and then a lot of them end up going market rate and still going to investors anyway, just because there's not enough people that qualify for those specific guidelines in the end.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, like economists say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always an effect. And to Auntie Joyce's point in concept about tax breaks on family transfer of homes, it's like rent control on the mainland. Sadly, family members have found a way to get around it. Auntie Joyce, you're absolutely right. There's always unintended consequences, right? Show me an incentive that involves a lot of money, and I'll show you a way around it. There's always that going on, so you always have to be careful about that. Megan replied back, a little flooding in our front yard, but overall fine in Pili. Good, glad to hear about that. Thinking about our friends in Kihei and upcountry that are having a hard time. Yes, indeed. Thanks, Megan. Glad to hear that you folks are fine. Hey, we're running out of time over here, so it's time for Diamonds and Deals. So this is the time when we have Dylan and Heidi sharing the properties that are aspirational, inspirational, diamonds or deals, or both. So let's start with this one. Heidi, what we got here? We got a Wailuku Maui 3-bedroom. Wow, what a deal. 3-bedroom, 1 bath for $550. Heidi, what are we looking at?
So this is a fee simple single family home on Maui for $550, which is just pretty amazing. It's an older home. It was built in 1933. It's right in Wailuku town. And since we were talking about coffee before, it's a short walk to Wailuku Coffee Company downtown, which is pretty great. The lot size is just a little over 3,000 square feet. It's fully enclosed with a rolling gate, and then you have, your little home there and piece of land right in Wailuku for $550.
That's a deal. That is a deal. You want to get a home in Maui. Heidi, for those that don't know, Wailuku is kind of near there's no such thing as an urban core in Maui, but Wailuku is like near town, right? That sort of town of Maui, more the urban. If there's such a thing of urban, Wailuku is kind of near the urban area of Maui. Is correct?
Yeah, Wailuku is in central Maui. It's close to Kaʻalui, where the main airport is, and the big box stores like Target, Costco. Wailuku does have a really charming little downtown area. Definitely nothing on Maui feels like a big city. I mean, it's more town-like. But yes, and I mean, in Wailuku, you're centrally located. That's where all the government offices are. You're going to be closer to the hospital, doctor's offices, airport, shopping, things like that.
So if you want like a little bit of a slice between two worlds where you want to be kind of in some sort, you want to have, close by to shopping, etc. Wailuku's a good spot for it. Thank you, Heidi. Hey, gang, let me know what you all think. Who's who's moving to Maui for this home for 550? That is a deal. This is Scott's property. We're going to skip that. Okay, Dylan, we got here. We got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Wainani Estates. What is it? Wow, it's a huge house. Dylan, what do we got here?
It's not a huge house, but
Looks big.
It's basically a new build. I mean, it was built in 2019. This is actually in the community, one of the last new communities that have been built, and this is in Palisades, right near the airport in Kona. And yeah, just a immaculate home, beautiful, huge yard, sweeping ocean views, and 1.2 million. This is a pretty good deal if you want to have basically a new house in a really nice neighborhood in a great area. You just outside of town, but you're real close to Costco and all the amenities of Kailua Kona, and some of our best beaches are like 10 minutes away on the coastline. So super cool opportunity. This is on open house all weekend if you're in town, and I'm sure it'll sell quickly.
So I'm looking at I'm getting a little bit of a sense. There's a view in the upper right hand corner of the screen. Is that like the view out of the lanai? Is that like a giant yard or something? What is that?
Yeah, it's a huge. It's a little lanai and then a huge yard, and then
huge yard.
There's actually a big elevation change between that and the street below, which is a dead end, so there isn't any traffic on it. But yeah, you're just overlooking the rooftops below you, and you got the almost a 180-degree ocean view. So year-round sunsets, just beautiful.
So here's the question I got to you all, and throw this in the comments. If you had to buy today, if you wanted to buy a home today, and the only ones you could choose from is the Maui house in Wailuku, or the Big Island house in Wainani Estates, which one would you get, Maui or Big Island? Pop it in the comments. I'd be curious to know. Let's hear about it. And let's see, we're coming out to our right on time, down to our closing thoughts. Hey, gang, first of all, I want to kind of thank everyone for being here. It's great. It's really been, I really enjoy kind of everyone gets together every couple of weeks. And so it's really fun. And Kenai says Big On. Yeah, indeed. I'm with you on that one. It's a beautiful property. So I just want to thank you all for coming over here. So we're going to move on to our closing thoughts. Heidi, why don't we start with you? What's your closing thought to say goodbye to everybody?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching the show and joining us and supporting Islander Ohana. And this is probably the last show of the year, I think. So I just want to say thank you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we haven't, we don't plan out too much in advance, but there is the next one in 2 weeks, which will be on Christmas Eve, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see. There may be a Christmas Eve edition.
I think we got to do that.
I think if only Scott to come back with his flapping hat, just to come, to give.
We got to do it. We've got to do it with. I'll have to do it outside so everybody can see what Christmas Eve looks like in Hawaii.
That's a good idea. Yeah, actually, yeah, that'd be a great idea. We got a couple of comments over before we go to you, Dylan. So Jim wants the Maui house. Corey, Corey, Corey knows I have a coffee. I drink my coffee right, and it tips my nose, and I fill my coffee to the top, so there's grounds left, and it makes my nose black, and like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, except it's not red, it's black. Tom says, I worry about blocking a local from buying a single family home in Maui. Tom, it's a good question. It's not so much that you're blocking. It isn't that it's not as well, it's a zero-sum game in a sense, but it's it's a hard story. It's not necessarily that you not buying a home does not assure that some local will get a home, right? That's not the way it works. Now, what you could do, Tom, is you could put your offer in and tell the agent, hey, look, if the next best offer, if the number two, if mine's the number one, if the number two offer is a local family, give it to them. You can make that your rule.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Pete. I've never heard that. It's a great idea.
Right? Yeah. So if you're worried about that, just say, look, if I'm number one and number two is a local family, give it to them. And just to kind of close on this issue, because this is one of these things, right? The other aspect is that there's one more party that's involved here with homes being bought and sold by mainland versus local buyers. There's one more party, the seller. The seller's the party. So the seller, Dylan, if I'm not mistaken, the seller can choose any offer they want. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So a seller can decide to sell to a local company, to sell to a local family only. They could decide that. That's up to them. So we're going to let God work it out. That's what I say. Auntie Joyce, three hearts. Love the 3 hearts. Auntie Joyce. Yeah, Joan, I'm looking forward to, it's going to be really fun. We've been seeing each other over the video, and it's going to be fun. And hopefully, Joyce, let's pray for an awesome moonrise. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And Patrick wants the Big Island home. So that's Patrick. Dylan, what's your closing thought? Give us the Dylanism. I've been waiting for 2 weeks, Dylan, for the Dylanism.
Longer than that, because I missed the last show. But so the thought for this week is, if you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. And it just makes me think of you guys that attend this every other week. And I really appreciate you coming on and learning, and nobody can stop you. So I love hanging out with you guys.
Would you repeat that again slowly? It's a classic. Let's hear that again.
If you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. Love it, man.
That's the Dylanism. That's the Dylanism I was waiting for. And so this is for you, Kinaya. You just heard what Dylan said. Nothing can stop you, girl. You can do it. You can do this. You can do this. All right, gang. So listen, Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy. Hey, good to see you, Jeremy. Give us an update, man. Jeremy is pursuing a career as a appraiser, if I'm not mistaken, over here. So love to hear that.
We need more of them. Appraisers are like 3 to 6 weeks out right now. It's ridiculous, the delays that they're causing right now. So we need more of them.
Yeah.
All right, man. Yeah.
And it costs $4,500 for an appraisal.
Oof.
Gosh. So I would say that's a good thing to get into.
Jeremy, hurry up, dude. Hurry up, man. And Melikalika Maka, yes, okay. We are going to have the Christmas Eve show. We are going to have the Christmas Eve show. So bring your Christmas cheer with you. Bring the 6 to 8 weeks. Awesome. Good. Bring your Christmas cheer. We are all going to see you next week, in 2 weeks. For our Christmas Eve, our Christmas Eve special. Heidi, hope you can make it. Dylan, hope you can make it. Hope Scott can make it. All right, gang. We're going to go around. I'm going to say goodbye. Aloha, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks. See you on Christmas Eve. Dylan, and then Heidi, go.
Aloha, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Aloha.
Aloha, everyone. Have a great one. Enjoy.